AI tools aren't replacing creativity, they're removing the grunt work that gets in the way. Today, we're breaking down how smart teams are using coding assistants to spend more time solving real problems, not less. All right, gents. AI coding assistants, love them or hate them?
Love them.
Loved him.
I hate them. Just kidding. I love them. No, it's great. So tell me more, Austin. What are your thoughts?
So I grew up, I guess grew up is wrong, but I grew up pair programming. My first job out of college, I was working for a company called Pivotal Labs, and we were pair programming like crazy. I mean, like 40 hours a week with a pair, 2 people, 1 computer, and it just feels like the right way to write code. There's like this weight that gets lifted off of your shoulders when you have a pair. This like, as I'm typing, as I'm designing a new class or component, that pair is like, hey, this is a good idea, or like, hey, where are you going with this? And so you don't have to like worry about the architecture of the system. You don't have to know you don't have to hold the weight of everything you've built to like pre-commit into in context in your brain and short-term memory.
And like 2 heads are better than 1, right?
Yeah, 2 heads are better. I mean, it
Right.
truly felt like with a pair, you were faster than 2 solo developers. Like you just wrote better code, were faster, the quality was higher. And the hard thing is like it does, at the end of the day, it's like 2 people doing 1 person's job. At least it looks like that from the outside. And so
Right.
pairing is just not like approachable or like a real solution at a lot of companies. Like companies just look at this and be like, well, I just have 2 developers pick up 2 separate stories and they'll do a code review. And we could do a whole episode on why code reviews I think are not a great way to manage code. They're crappy. But
Just make sure you tell us how you really feel.
yeah, they're crappy. Code reviews. 2 seconds on code reviews. Code reviews are at the wrong time. The hard part of writing software is not the output; it is the process of building the component.
Sure.
And so code reviews are completely absent of the component of the process, the journey that it took to how did I name these things? How did I separate concerns this way? And having someone to have a conversation with that about is incredible. Code reviews miss that because they happen after the fact. It looks at your code and the code reviews are superficial. It's too late in the process.
Sometimes they turn into like a rubber stamp too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They're tedious. An AI code assistant, so like using agentic coding or Claude Code, Cursor, Windsurf, that kind of stuff, it is that pair. You can use it in so many ways. So like, you turn on, let's talk about, Cursor. But you turn on Cursor and you go straight in and you ask it to help you build something, and it just starts building something. But the coolest part I've found of it is not like it can go generate me an app, like vibe code me a landing page or a to-do app. It's that it can hold significant portions of the code base in context and become a subject matter expert. And so I can use it like a pair. So it can generate code, modify my existing class structure and components and whatever. And then I can ask it why. What did you do here? How about we think about doing networking this way? And it's like, oh, I want to do networking. And you can actually have like a conversational back and forth right in a chat window with a AI assistant, and it feels like a pair. Like it gives you that same sense of comfort, like lifts that weight off your shoulders. And it truly, like we implemented, everybody at Focused uses Cursor now, or Windsurf. They kind of get to choose. And we've seen incredible increases in developer productivity from, writing small features to working in massive, legacy code bases. People are able to use these agents as a pair. And then if they complement the agent with a human pair, you can kind of bounce back and forth between soloing, pairing, all that kind of stuff. And you have all these tools. It truly is giving everybody in the world a pair to program with.
Yeah, I think it's extremely powerful. There are a couple times, though, where I feel like I'm arguing with a very stubborn pair, and it's refactoring my test that I didn't expect it to, and I have to guide it back to okay, let's focus up. We're actually working on this component. We're working on this test. I'm willing to admit that could be a problem that exists between the keyboard and chair, meaning me. But as we get more used to that, yeah, it's not like a silver bullet, right? It's not 100% all the time. But I mean, it's fine.
I mean, you can get bad pairs, and like pairing is a skill.
Right.
So like when you sit down and you pair program with a person, the first time you do it, even if you're junior or senior, it doesn't really matter your level. Like the ability to articulate the code you're writing, the path you're headed towards, the why, watch someone else code and it not be yours, and you don't really understand why, and get that out of them in a kind, empathetic way. That's a skill. It takes practice. And like to say that I can pair with an AI assistant and not assume that also takes skill is I think like intentionally ignorant. Like we have to learn how to use these AI assistants. And like, yeah, one time I was like working in a fairly substantial code base, and it was really well tested, which is a huge cheat code for using AI to code is like tests, because you can always run your tests, make sure that the code works. And I was like telling Claude, like the code, the tests aren't passing, and so it goes through and just deletes all the assertions from my tests. So
that's one way to make them pass. Just like
I was like,
tests.
no, bro, like that's not what we want to do. We're not deleting or like it added the pass line to every test. Like it was like, okay, come on, Claude, like that's not what we're trying to do. So they're sometimes these AIs, especially Claude, can be a little bit like a golden retriever. Like you like throw a ball and it's like, let me get it. And totally. Doesn't matter if there's a street in the way or something like that.
Right. Yeah, it's just going to go do it.
It's just going to go do it. So that you have to learn, like there's a bunch of techniques, and we can talk a little bit about it. I'd love to hear like, so in pairing, in software development, we always work with a pair. And so like AI can be that pair, or a person can be that pair. And if you don't have a pair, we review code. But in design, like how do you use...
it goes back to the same thing. The AI becomes the pair, right? So now we talked about this previously with the compression of roles. Like, you're compressing research, information architecture, and all these roles into one product designer. And you compress that even further, and now you have an AI pair that can actually generate those ideas for you. Knowing how to use that pair is the key, right? That's how you actually that's how you can get better. What's really cool for me about AI is it can take data in such a rich context. It's not just prompts, it's not just text. You can throw wireframes at it, you can throw research at it, you can throw videos at it. Like you throw all of these things to build that context. So the context doesn't need to be just the code base. The context could also be, hey, this is the business case, this is the user case. Like you can build a comprehensive picture of the problem. So it goes beyond just like a coding pair or whatever the AI pair you want to call it,
it's
right?
Like, it's like a person. Like you can give it as much context as you would give a person. It's really wild how it feels like that.
Yeah.
So I've got a question though, because let's consider this too from a security standpoint, right? So now we're going to be pumping all of this data. You're telling me that you're putting maybe even graphics or proprietary information. My favorite autocomplete happened to me on Copilot. I started writing in an environment file, and I was typing in an API key, and it filled out a key for me.
Did it work? Did the key work? Did you try the key?
I didn't try it because I was like freaked out.
Yeah,
totally. But what do we say to detractors or folks who are really concerned about the security of like your proprietary information going into these large language models, and frankly, you're admitting it to this black box. You don't know who's using it for what. It's kind of like a pinky promise that we're not going to use this for nefarious purposes. What are your thoughts?
All of these tools have to answer that question because, of course, like no one wants to give like core intellectual property to a third party. But at the same time, like
not on purpose.
Not on
accident. On accident, it's okay.
Most organizations are okay doing it if the right safeguards are put in place.
Sure.
And so, like, even the most secure large enterprises scared and cautious about sharing of intellectual property, I would bet most of them use GitHub.
Right.
And maybe they deploy GitHub on-prem, but they are using a third party that manages that software for them. Like it is not that like companies are completely afraid of these things, and there are ways you can run AI. So first, if you're a startup and you want to keep a startup, mid-sized enterprise, like mid-market company, or a large enterprise that doesn't have significant security concerns around your IP, you can sign up for a lot of these things with like enterprise plans. And they have, even ours, we pay for a plan where you get like no data retention, no logs, no anything. And there's
right.
data security. And then these companies like Cursor, Windsurf, Claude. They all guarantee, security around their stuff. So you have to bet kind of on their security.
Right.
If you're more afraid than that, my favorite tool, and I'll shout out a really cool open source project, is ClineBot. So CLINE bot. And what they do, it's essentially Cursor. It's a plugin for VS Code, and it gives you the whole agent chat. It gives you the RAG over your code base, and then it uses OpenRouter, or it can use any OpenAI compatible API to do agentic coding. So if you're so concerned, and this is you can have legitimate reasons for that. You're so concerned about using third-party APIs, like run Llama, maybe not Llama 4, but Llama 3, or run your own models, OpenCoder, DeepSeek, whatever it is, and then connect Cline to that, and then you can air gap the whole thing.
Sure.
And so then there's like no risk of it leaking out. So, and then there's training. So you need to train your developers. Hey, don't copy paste this into, the deepseek.ai website, because, we don't know where that's going.
Right.
So instead, we're going to use things like, ClineBot plus a connection to an internal, series of models, StarCoder for autocomplete, DeepSeek for, code assistance, that kind of stuff. But hosted DeepSeek, not your self-hosted.
Right. Yeah, the irony there, I think, is there's a lot of scrutiny on these tools for their security, but I'm like, when's the last time you audited your S3 buckets in AWS?
Yeah, it's
like how many public buckets do you have laying around, right?
I think the fear people have is that they're using the data as, like, if you give code to a AI, are they using it for training?
Right.
So is it like, I'm going to upload, some marketing copy or a whole bunch of new designs for a new product release that is coming in 6 months, and then a new model comes out and it's generating essentially the same crap that I gave it.
It's
like
generating my IP.
It's generating my IP, and that there's horror stories of that happening. But if you engage with these companies, they have ways to guarantee that's not going to happen.
It was similar to what happened when Figma first released their AI. When you prompted it, I mean, this was before AI became mainstream. When you prompted it, it started generating apps that look like Apple apps, like the weather apps and all that. And they scrapped it immediately.
It's too close.
That's funny. It's the sincerest form of flattery, I guess, right? Imitation. The AI coding assistants blow my mind because of like just how quickly things happen. Like I love to say like it's just going burr. Like you let it go and it like starts to do that. How do we internalize that, or at least keep that in control? Like how do you break yourself out of I'm going to zone out while this thing is generating the app? You talked about pair programming. The thing I love about having a good pair is that they can stop me when I'm in a rabbit hole. Yeah. Right. I have yet to see a coding assistant do that for me. So I don't know. Do you think that's going to be in a future state? Do you think that that's something people should watch out for? Like
they are too like pleasing, and it's always like call and response. So like the nice thing about a real human pair is that they'll interrupt you.
Right.
Where AI, I ask it to do something, it does something. I ask it why it did something, it tells me why. But it's never going to see me typing and be like, yo, bro, like we don't need to add another responsibility to this class. Let's create a new class.
Right.
Kind of thing. Like it just doesn't do that. So that's part of the skill right now of using these tools. It's like I will use it. I will have a architectural conversation with my AI. So like what I like to do is I start all in Cursor right now, or Cline, but all inside of the chat window. I'll go in and to the chat window on the right pane, and I'll say, hey, I'm working on this feature. And I turn off agent mode. And now in Cursor, you don't have to turn it off. It kind of recognizes it's a question, so it doesn't go wild and change stuff. But I say, hey, I'm working on this feature, and here's how I'm thinking about implementing it. What are you thinking? Like, what are some other ways we could do this?
Sure.
And then, like, we kind of talk about it in chat for a minute. And we kind of plan an execution. I'm like, cool. So now let's like break this up into like a series of like tasks that we need to complete. And then I'll say, okay, cool. And I'll switch. So I might start that one with like, a thinking model. So like we're really going hard at like, how are we reasoning about this? And I'm passing in context. So in all these chat apps, you can like add files. So you'll like add a file or a folder. I'll add a file or a folder, I'll put it into the context, and I'll say, hey, here's what I'm thinking. We go back and forth, get the tasks, and then I might switch to something that's like a better coding model.
Right.
And I might say, okay, so this was a really good thinking model. Now I'm going to switch over to a coding model now that I kind of have a plan in the same chat context, because you have that whole kind of scroll up. I'll say, okay, cool, let's work on task number 1. And the key here is like putting guardrails around it. And you can do it by putting like cursor rules into cursor, and Windsurf has something similar. But you say like, hey, only do what I'm asking, use these code styles, this kind of stuff. And then it'll start to develop. And then the real key, this goes back to security too, is like none of these things, none of the tools write code that you don't approve. And so like you as the developer, you are the like final line of defense against malicious, bad, improper, bug-ridden code. And so like click approve, review the code that the AI generates the same way you would review a PR if you were like actually reviewing the PR instead of rubber stamping it.
That's kind of interesting though, and I got to pull that out because we just said code reviews are malarkey, and what you're doing is constantly code reviewing.
But it's in real time, so I'm reviewing.
Okay, I missed that part.
I'm reviewing the code in real time, so I haven't written the whole feature. So I'm not like a whole 2-pointer like pushed up into GitHub and it's been like sitting on ice for 2 days.
Right.
It's like I've written, changed a few things. I've clicked on this. I've clicked accept. This doesn't make sense. Why is this here? Oh, you duplicated a function. It loves duplicating stuff. Mm-hmm. You've duplicated a function. Can we use this? So it is in more real time. And so it's less of the human code review like after the fact process and more in real time.
I like the PM. So basically what you called out initially was the planning phase. So you're like PMing the project, right? Like this is the problem. You're breaking it down. So you need to have skills beyond just coding or design. Like you need to be able to think critically about how you're going to plan and approach this problem. Like to your point, like an AI coding assistant kind of just conforms. It does what you ask it to do. Is there a way that you can also train it so that it pushes back against bad practices? Can you is it possible for a AI pair programmer to have those rules, those best practices that can say, hey, you know what, this is actually not right?
I haven't gotten it to a point where they like truly push back like a good senior architect. I think of like the AI pair programmer is like a mid-level developer who is going to take instruction really well and can produce an astronomical amount of code, but not all the code they produce is like of the highest quality. And it's like you're never going to release a sea of mid-level or mid-junior developers onto a project and be like everything they write is great. You're going to have some seniors, some architects, some staff engineers be there to be like, hey, here's architecture for the system. Here's how we separate responsibilities between like data access, networking, authentication, business logic. And like the AIs don't do that really well, but they can be coaxed into it. Mm-hmm. And so but they don't do it through a rules file. They normally do it through like, they do it wrong and they're like, hey, I see you're adding authentication logic, or actually normally it's like, I see you're like inlining database access into the views of this like application in the back end. Like let's pull that into like a service, and you'll give it another service and like this is the pattern you should follow. And I'm like, oh cool, let's do that. And then it normally gets it pretty well. I think it is about like switching between all these tools, and now these things like used to you would have to like copy paste things into a web UI and a lot of other stuff. Now because these VS Code forks, Klein have all gotten so good, you really don't ever have to leave one application. Right. The distraction is kind of coming all the way back to one of the great things about a pair is like while the tests are running, you're talking to your pair about the architecture versus like scrolling reels. Yeah, totally. Or pulling up Slack or something like that. The Cursor realizes it's such a big problem that the assistants come out and like don't give like immediate feedback, and they're generating code and it takes 90 seconds or a minute or a couple minutes. And they even added a feature where the cursor will like ding at you when it finishes, like like a microwave. So like beep beep boop ding, and so like then you're like, oh, I gotta go back. Amazing. So you like tab back in from Hacker News. That's funny. But I don't like that part of the coding assistant, and I think as the alphas that are going to exist inside of language models going forward, like my gut is there's better reasoning, better thinking around certain domains, like better coders, better whatever.
Right.
And then the other alpha is speed. How fast can you do inference? And it's the hardware, the model itself, the size of the model. There's all these components that go into that. And like if you plug Llama 3.3 Klein and Grok in, like there is no delay in generating. It's just like,
yeah.
But Llama 3.3 is not phenomenal at code. They're much better models. So as like Meta maybe releases another open source coding model comes out that's phenomenal at coding, like Google quality or Claude quality coding assistant, and then that can get run on like Grok hardware,
right?
Grok with a Q, not with a K. Then like the context switching or like kind of the board that hits you when the agent is off doing its thing goes away because it's so fast.
Yeah. I think it's a good thing to call out. Like, you got to change the tools. You can't just assume that every assistant or every LLM is going to do the same job correctly, or in the same application, right? And you got to keep up with it. It's rapidly changing.
Oh, it's crazy. Like, we shooting this podcast today, and yesterday, ChatGPT released 4.1.
Right.
Which I don't know how they go from releasing 4.5 to releasing 4.1.
But they downgraded it. It's fine. Don't worry about it.
Apparently 4.1, they say, I haven't played with it yet because we've been here, but the apparently 4.1 is phenomenal at coding. And so Google Gemini 2.5 has been like the best coder in the last 2 months, but before that it was Claude, and now it's is it 4.1? So you have to like constantly try. And what I'll do is I'll work inside a code, and then LLMs, because context matters and the whole chat context matters, they get into like these doom loops.
Right.
Like you're like, there's a meme of like, you're like, the bug's still there. The bug's still there. The bug's still there. The bug's still there.
And like a human, just saying the same thing over and over again, repeating yourself doesn't mean that it actually is going to fix it, right?
So 2 tips to fix that. First, start a new chat.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, just because all that chat context above it is what's confusing it. You can also give it other files or remove things from its context, but start a new chat. The other one is if you don't want to start a new chat or there's too much context there, switch models.
Yeah.
Different models handle context differently. They manage it differently. And so like going from like, if I'm stuck with Gemini 2.5, I might switch over to Claude 3.5.
Right.
And then it might get it. And then Claude eventually will get stuck, and I might switch back to Google, and then that gets stuck. So then I switch over to, some 4.0 or 4.1 model. And then, so you kind of can bounce between those, and each one of them thinks about things slightly differently.
Yep.
So they can break that doom loop.
I do think you've got to be careful about really long running context when you're using one of these assistants. You can just see the quality degrade. Like changing the model, starting a new session, being really, really feature specific on a small component of code that you're working on is much more efficient and effective. And I think there's a gain for engineers who do that because it keeps you disciplined in that way, right?
Yep.
So you're not trying to rewrite your whole code base. It's like, let's optimize this function.
Yep.
Stop, commit it, start a new session.
And as code bases get larger, I move further and further away from like full bore agent coding,
Yeah, right.
to a lot more like autocomplete, or like what I'll do is I'll highlight. You can, in all these tools, you can highlight sections of the code and then like put that, even just that section into context. So I'll be like, here are 3 methods that we are working on. I already know where we're going to work on it. And so I just give it that, and it will only edit that too. And so you can force it to only edit like inside of the context you're giving it. And so like vibe coding is like the art of generating like whole applications. And as you move into like more scaled code bases, anything that has legacy to it, you move from doing vibe coding to, I think, doing AI-driven development.
Right.
And you're using AI to drive your development cycles versus the other way around, where you're using like your product management skills to let AI build the app. And so the power shifts and like the autonomy shifts to where I'm giving very specific context. I'm very, very specific parts of the code, and I'm driving it significantly more.
So I'm curious to hear about something around this vibe coding and AI coding assistance. So all of the knowledge that AI brings in is built on past knowledge, right? It's past practices, It's trained on existing apps. Moving forward,
They could say the same is true about you.
Yeah. Congratulations, Shahed. You're an AI.
Or anybody, right? Like,
no, but like but if you think about new design patterns are going to come out, new ways of interacting with software. Like this even so one saying that I live by is the best interaction is no interaction, right? So we try to reduce because software is solving a pain for users, right? I mean, the reason we have forms is because it's painful to fill out physical forms, so we have digital forms, right? What if we didn't need forms? It's just an example.
Sure.
But let's say you have like AR technology, VR technology, stuff that hasn't permeated our technological use still, but like there isn't enough data that's trained on this stuff. Like, can you still use AI coding assistants for like the vision of the future? Like say for design, like whatever we are envisioning for the future, can AI coded assistants help with that?
I mean, you're the design expert, Shahed, but I do think what's past is prologue, right? But I think it will be interesting to see what is the feedback loop, or at least the time spent to retrain models. Like we're going to see a place where I think that could be much more like much quicker, like so very rapid.
This is like such a real problem because Tailwind releases a new version,
right?
Or whatever dependencies you have release a new version, and the AI might not be aware of the new version. React comes out with a new version, and so like all the training in these models is on version 2, and now version 3 is out, and you really want to use version 3 because why would you use the old one that's getting EOL'd? So there are techniques to bring that stuff in, but that's where a good developer still sits in the like driver's seat. Like
Right.
you still have to be able to like, and I will get into fights with AI where it'll be like Tailwind 3 doesn't exist. And I'm like, yes, it does. There's a link. And it's like, no, it doesn't. And you're like arguing with the thing, and you're like, all right, I'm going to just write the code.
I'm just going to stop.
And I think the key is understanding the value of this pair. Like I'm not done writing code.
Right.
I still get to write code.
Right.
And I still need to write code. I can use these things to generate substantial amounts of boilerplate that I used to have to do myself. And it can accelerate me through huge portions of like what was like lag in developing, and I can focus on the things that are edge, new, going forward. And all of them have an ability to like add docs and like new versions of stuff as RAG, but the training data plus the RAG, you sometimes get like it gets confused. It'll use like old APIs for something that you're trying to give it new APIs for. And so like you just have to understand, like, when am I arguing with my pair, and instead of trying to convince my mid-junior pair to do this for me, I'll just do it. Like I can just write the code.
So not use it as a crutch.
Yeah.
Not a crutch. It's not a crutch.
It's not a crutch. Yeah, but
I think as Archimedes said, like, give me a lever long enough and a place to stand, and I can move the world. And like, I think AI is that lever. It's a long lever, but you need someone to pull the lever. It is not a place, like, it is not a replacement for a developer. It is a replacement for developer pairs. It is a replacement for like a lot of product. It is a accelerant for a lot of productivity. There's a ton there that we need to be engaging with. And if you're an engineering leader, if you're a VP of E, CTO, senior engineer, and you're not using these tools, I think your skills are atrophying.
yeah.
I see a bunch of people like, AI writes dog shit code. Like I would never use AI. Look at this slop. But like, that's like saying like, well, I'll never engage with a junior because they write bad code.
Right.
I can learn how to use this tool to generate and accelerate everything that I'm doing. But I mean, like, even little stuff like deploy scripts. Like, oh, I need a bash script to help me like deploy this component. Can you help me do that? Like, it'll one shot that.
Yeah.
Where, my bash is pretty good, but I can't remember everything. So I'm like in Google trying to figure out, okay, how do you do like this type of conditional in bash and make sure it works on all these differences, like all that kind of stuff. And it's like, Nope, AI, done. At Focused, we value craftsmanship over shortcuts. If you're looking to build more thoughtful technology, go to focused.io and reach out. We'd love to chat with you. All right, let's get back to the conversation.
All right, so now we're going to do our favorite keep or kill, right? So I've got a list of, possible scenarios applicable to AI. We'll go around the horn and talk, give it a keep or a kill, and we'll talk about it. So I'm going to read these off. You ready?
Let's do it.
Let's go. Okay, keep or kill. AI agent to automatically submit a PR when CI fails.
I think this would slap. Like it's such. That's what the millennials say. I hear, or not millennials. One after that. I'm a millennial.
We know Austin.
Yeah. So the idea of like I submit code into my continuous integration pipeline. CI fails because a test fails. Maybe it fails on CI but not locally, or something is going wrong, and then I could have a completely autonomous agent like pick up that failure, add a commit into that PR and try to get it to pass, and then a human would come back through and review that code. Seems like a huge level up, because the idea of every time a developer has to return to CI is this massive context switch. And if I submit into a CI pipeline, if that CI pipeline takes too long, which most of them do, I think CI should run in under 2 minutes no matter what. But if they take 45 minutes to 3 hours, which a lot of them do, most of them, then like you've already started working on the next feature. Now you're building on top of a failing infrastructure because you're like probably didn't flag it off well, and you're building on top of what you think is going to go into main next. And so like the idea of some agentic system coming in, fixing that PR for you, and then getting it, committed into trunk is really, really valuable. And then you don't have to switch context back and then update your new code to fit on top of the old code and all this stuff. So this is gold.
So you're saying we should kill it? Okay, cool. Shahed, what do you think?
I actually didn't know what any of those words meant until Austin actually explained it. But that logic actually makes perfect sense to me now.
Nice.
Sold them. Sold them.
Oh, man. I'm going to be the guy. I say kill it. And the reason why is because you hinted at something that I think is really important. The devil's in the details with CI systems. And it would require a significant amount of work to shore those up so that an operations team would feel somewhat confident that an agent would actually do the right thing. Like, we've all seen CI systems that are just
Well, it's not changing the CI system. It's,
no.
It's editing
no,
the
hang
code.
on. You do need to change the CI system, because if your tests take 4.5 hours to run, you're never going to get an agent to fix that. So that you hit on something that I want to call out.
But I'm fixing the code, not the CI's 4 hours.
I'm saying that you can't just start an agent workflow on a 4 or 5 hour running CI system without some human intervention.
No, like okay, hear me out. I feel like I didn't articulate myself well. So
defend yourself, sir.
I am defending myself because I think I can get you to keep. I think I can get you there. I push code. CI starts running. It's running all my tests. Some random integration test fails because I changed the class name of a button and the selector was wrong. So it pops up and it says your playwright test or your capybara test or whatever, they failed. As a developer, I would have to see on my CI monitor or something that my tests have failed. I go pull back down that PR. I edit it. I make a new commit. CI starts to run again. Why can't an AI agent get the webhook that says your CI failed, get the error, it comes in, that error gets fed into the agent with fix this. It looks through the code, sees where it needs to fix it, edits the class so the selector works, makes a commit, has a good commit message, fixed, failing, test, blah, because
definitely not a good commit message, but yeah, I get what you're saying.
Yeah, and then I do commit messages exclusively with emoji, so and then it commits that back as a PR, and then the tests go green, and then there should be a human in that
Sure.
Right, so now like maybe there's another part of the CI code base or CI pipeline. This might be what needs to change, but like if the tests are green, you should probably trust your tests. So like if the tests are green and it goes through, maybe it just can get merged into main. Or you say, hey, AI edited this autonomously. It submitted the PR. The PR is green. Human just look at the code one last time before they click merge. They go click merge. It gets pulled into main. CI runs one more time, and you're good to go. Like, why do you need to change anything?
I just think, okay, there's some problems with, I think, what you're proposing, but I'm almost there. You've almost convinced me. But yeah, you got to give me a little wiggle room here. You're making a false assumption that there's this one-to-one correlation that the CI error or issue is actually accurate. And so we've all seen a lot of CI systems that have flappy tests or things that are always failing due to like interdependencies. Some of those are contextually really hard for even developers to tease out. So I'm going to go with you because we got to move on to the next one, but I'm going to go with you if we say that you should use AI to like continually refactor your code.
Yep. And the CI, all right, if you have flappy tests in your CI, if you have a test that's always red so everybody ignores it, like as soon as you have a test that is always red and your CI is red regularly, like you don't have CI. It doesn't matter. You are as good as not having it. If you cannot trust green means goes into main and I will like push main to prod and all that stuff is automated. If there's one flappy test, it's like, oh, it's just the one, test that always has that timing issue. And so we'll just like push it through. No, either delete that test or fix it.
Yeah. Because
it's not a good test and you start to lose trust in CI. Then people don't look. Red CI, a red continuous integration pipeline, should be the highest priority of every development team, no matter what. And if flappy tests are there, then it moves to a low priority. It's like, oh, it's probably the flappy test, so I'm not even going to look. That slows down the whole team because what you've done is like, I love the idea of a pipeline. It is a manufacturing pipeline, and we now have a machine that is down.
Yeah,
and
hit the big red button and stop it.
Exactly. We are bulking feature up at that flappy test.
Yep.
And if we do that, we're accumulating risk. We put more into prod than we should at any given time. Rollbacks become more difficult. If you have a flappy test, that's a problem of the test suite, not of AI making changes. Fix that test or just delete it.
Yeah. Okay, so why didn't you say that in the first place? You've convinced me. Keep.
Yeah.
All right, we'll go to the next one. All right, keep or kill. AI coding assistant tools that auto-complete complex logic. They speed development, but blur human accountability for critical bugs. What do you think? Is that true?
I don't think that they blur human accountability for critical bugs. I just think that part is false.
Yeah, so kill that sentence, but let's go back to AI coding assistant tools
if it's like
complex logic.
I understand there's like the but there. Like
yeah.
The human developer is still in the driver's seat.
Right.
You are approving the code. As long as you're approving the code, use AI for everything.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. But if you push a bug that like exposes all your database to the public internet, like you should have retro and understand why that got through and like how to prevent that. Like that is like you are still accountable. And the answer is not, well, AI wrote it and I was getting coffee.
Right.
Like that doesn't work. So I would keep, but like swap accountability. Like there is no blurred accountability to me.
Sure.
Yeah, same thing. It's the human is responsible at the end of the day, right? Like you can't blame, my computer did it or AI did it or my dog ate my homework. No, it's you are responsible. So yeah, once you take that statement out, I'm with Austin. Keep it.
Yeah.
Use AI for everything.
The engineering version of the dog ate my homework works on my machine, but I would say keep it. So we're going to be 2 for 2. Let's keep going and see if we can get some more discourse here. Okay, keep or kill. AI written backlogs.
I would say we need some clarity around at what point does AI write backlog, right? So it's your role as a human is still to edit the backlog. Like you have the feature, you know what's to be written. First pass, just have it one shot, a backlog, have it generate everything. That's fine. I think keep it. But you still have to be ruthlessly editing that. You can't just offload critical thinking to AI.
I would kill it.
Yeah.
Even as a first pass?
I think it's okay as a first pass. It's okay. But like, I don't want to, like the backlog design is the product strategy. Mm-hmm. And I don't want a consultant doing my product strategy. I don't want AI doing my product strategy. I want my company doing product strategy. And if I like have some arduous bureaucratic process where every feature needs a PRD and like that kind of stuff, and so I like have to type, or like I have to do a 6-page memo or something like that. And so instead of having the goal of like the 6-page memo or a long PRD is that I, as the product manager, think through this in like such a deep way that I really understand what is valuable and everything. Now, if I can just like, oh, I have to write 6 pages or I have to write a whole PRD, and so I'll just generate it in 25 minutes, like fix the process.
Right.
Like that, like why are you making a developer read AI generated stuff? Because the whole point of that was like you went through the work as a product team to really understand where the value is, why we're doing it, what the issues could be, how we're going to test it, where we A/B test. And like use it as an editor, like use it to help you formulate thoughts in a more clean way. But if you're first pass generating PRD and then like changing it from like it said Angular, you write React, or you know, I think you're giving away what is like the value of the future of product development, which is I would kill it.
I don't know. I'm on the fence on this one. I think it depends on what you mean and where it intervenes. I think you both raise like really good points. Using it as an accelerator for, you know, I have to fill out this specific form or this specific protocol for my organization. Yeah, it should be used as an accelerator, right? What I would be.
But then you're just making someone else read a whole bunch of AI generated.
Well, that's the thing, right? That we've already kind of established all of us are against this AI slop. Like you can't just turn the AI on and just expect it to have any kind of like reasonable thing to say about your business or your process, right? You have to be ruthlessly editing, interrogating, changing, iterating on it. So honestly, if AI written backlog, I'd say keep it if it generates this kind of passionate discussion on your team, right?
Fair
if
enough.
it's a tool enough that's forcing that discussion to happen, then cool, use it. All right, keep or kill. Training junior engineers primarily with AI coding assistance.
Kill.
Dang it. Yeah, kill. I don't like the quorum, but Shahed, you started. What do you think?
It's the value for juniors is learning from experience, from like from learned human experiences, right? And AI can get you there. Like you need to know what questions to ask, right? I mean, that's the value. Like if you are a junior, like I'll say this from like a design perspective, like you see a junior working, there's a lot of things minor things that you can pick on their workflows, on how they kind of do things, how they interface with the stakeholders, how they present. Like there's a lot of things that you can pick up on and you can coach them, right? And this had continuous monitoring in like an environment, right? With AI, I feel like it's the context is very limited and it's only around execution part of it, and it's helpful if you want to get technically better, but not as like a comprehensive, way of learning.
All right, I'll say, I would kill this, but there's because of the word primarily, vibe coding is not AI driven development. They are two totally different skills. Like period, end of story. They are different. To vibe code allows anybody to build software. Like they can build an app, they can build something pretty cool, and you're seeing a ton of this stuff come out, and it's incredible. That is not editing software in a massive or like in any reasonably sized system. In order to edit software, edit code, which is most of code, is being a good software developer is the ability to change code, not the ability to write code. And you're changing code to have new behavior. Juniors need to learn how to do that. And the way you learn how to do that is you learn how to understand the code and the context around what you're trying to change. You can use AI as a tool to help you understand that code. You can ask it questions. You can have it generate something. You can do that. But when I would pair with juniors early on, when I'd pair with juniors, I would even have them like not copy paste out of Stack Overflow, but instead like, pull up window, IDE here, Stack Overflow here, side by side, and type it out.
Yeah.
Type it out. So
Yeah,
you can
yeah.
kind of understand the structure and what's going on, because you're going to edit it. So rather copy, paste, edit, type that function that you just saw on Stack Overflow that does what you want it to do. And like, I think there's an incredible value in using AI as that pair, even for a junior, but you cannot say it is the primary trainer. They have to have that agency. They have to have it.
No, I agree. I think the primarily is the biggest problem here. I do think it's ironic though. So like, it's interesting to think about. I remember when I was a kid, I told my dad, I was like, Dad, I'm really interested in being an engineer. And he's like, I don't really think you should do that. But I used to take that like as offensive, right? But then I thought about, my dad at the time of engineering, like there was not even a computer or a calculator that he used. They were using slide rules to calculate, logarithms, right?
Yeah.
Like you had to be that good, like to be able to figure out a slide rule, to do the math in your head. So he couldn't even predict what brand of engineering there was when I went to college, right? So are we kind of calling this the same thing where we're associating the slide rule to a new paradigm?
Maybe we're like the old guys in the room, which feels weird to me, but I have some gray coming in. That's the 3 kids, not maybe having a business and 3 kids. But anyway, one of the coolest things about doing test-driven development is you get these like constant hits of dopamine of completion.
Right.
And when you use AI to generate code, there's this massive dopamine hit because like literally like a feature you wanted becomes reality in a matter of seconds and minutes versus, even a very fast senior programmer would take real time to see and get that. And it's like that dopamine hit, if applied right to a junior, is reinforcing. And it's like when I first started building woodworking or furniture and doing my woodworking, I was using a bunch of like, power tools, templates, like you were using a bunch of things that made it easier to build the furniture. Like
Sure.
a real templated thing. You'd buy a kit and you'd put together the kit and you would use a cut list that was already pre-designed, and all that kind of stuff made it so I could get a pretty incredible piece of furniture pretty quickly. And that gave me the dopamine. But then as I started to get better at woodworking, I wanted to learn the deeper fundamentals of how, wood grains are put together, how, joinery can be done without screws and glue, and so I started engaging with like the deeper parts of that craft.
Yeah.
And I think as a junior developer, I want you to use AI like you would use a template in a wood shop.
Sure.
Or like a set of power tools in a CNC. It's a really incredible tool, but it is not the end all. So like start there, get the dopamine.
Right.
Get engaged with this craft and then start pulling yourself back into like all the patterns and the process that built up to what is that AI coding assistant. And then when you get really good, similar to like a really good woodworker, you'll walk into a shop and they're hand joining some things and they're CNCing other things and they're using power tools here and they're buying cut pieces there and like, because they know, all right, here's where I use this tool, here's where I use that tool, and here's where I apply like deep craft.
Yeah.
And that's the difference between senior craftsperson in software development and a coder.
Yeah, use what works. All right. Keep or kill. Allowing AI coding assistants to autonomously refactor legacy code.
You got to have good tests, and then I would keep it. If you don't have good tests, you can't do it.
Nice.
That's it. I have nothing else to say on this one.
Yeah, I'll defer to Austin on this one.
I say kill it. I don't know. I think autonomously refactoring the code itself, I don't know. I don't know that we're there yet. I think using it as a context machine, like we've talked about, where a legacy code base is impossible for a human to understand the context, right?
Yeah.
So to help inform or drive the approach for legacy refactors, sure, I think that's great.
I said I had nothing else to say on this one.
See, I just got you going.
Dang it. All right. So, to refactor is to change the structure of code without changing the behavior of code. And we refactor because we want to make code, the structure of code, better for people to understand. That is the primary the primary user of a refactor and motivation of a refactor is a human developer. Why do I need, dry components? Like, do not repeat yourself. Because I want, one set of behavior, so a human doesn't have to reason about the way this is done 3 slightly different ways in 3 slightly different places. Instead, it's one place I can go look. Why do we have object-oriented programming? Because I can start to put in my head a mental model of the domain of this thing based on the object naming. Refactoring. Why does an AI need well-factored code?
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Like, if the AI is refactoring, so a good developer can come in and understand the stuff it wrote, I think that makes sense. But I think that's kind of a middle step in the world we are today. AI doesn't necessarily need well-factored code because it can reason about substantially more. It can read an entire, million token code base and see that it's, at one point, it's still not quite there, but see that there are 2 repetitive methods, but this one is, this call is referenced this method, this call is referenced this method. They're named the exact same thing, where a human might get confused on that. It's like a refactoring is for people. And so at some point, I would not let it autonomously do it because the person is the user, and I don't think AI understands people that well.
Right. Yeah.
But it can assist in it if you have good tests. You can't refactor without tests because you can't guarantee that you're not changing behavior. Tests are the guarantee you're not changing behavior. If you're refactoring without tests, it's not a refactor, it's a rewrite.
Gotcha. Yeah, I like that. All right, keep or kill. AI coding assistants suggesting implementation patterns based on past commits. I'm sorry, I gotta jump in on this one. Kill that. Have you ever read commit history? Like, it is extremely terrible. How many times have I literally committed first commit, updated README?
Trying to get CI to pass. Trying to get CI to pass.
Right, exactly. the past history is looks like a lunatic.
Yeah, GD GitHub Actions. Like, come on, GitHub Actions. Please, for the love of God, pass.
I say I'm going to bring something else in, though. I think there are going to be data signals that agents or AI assistants can use that we haven't anticipated yet. So one thing I think Austin and I have talked about before, just in our own personal conversations, is like, how do you leverage or could leverage observability data for this kind of thing? Mm-hmm. So based on like an observable system, how could I refactor it live, right? Or have like an agent that can interrogate that. So, but for commit history, no, kill it. Sorry, that's mine.
So I was interpreting this not as like the commit messages themselves, but like the diffs,
sure,
like diff over diff. But I don't know what extra value that would add. I think, the current trunk is the state of the art in the code base. And so just use the trunk.
You got the context in the trunk.
Right. So like, why do I need the Git history to figure this out? Like, why do I need diff to explain something?
Learn from past mistakes.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, don't rename your variable. Micah's nifty new variable when nobody else can use it. I mean, I agree though, because like you're not going to get a lot of value from that if the system can interrogate it in its current state.
If these episodes have sparked some new ideas or helped you level up your thinking, we'd really appreciate it if you could take a second and leave a quick 5-star rating on Spotify. It helps more people find these conversations, and honestly, it means a lot to our team. Just search /deploy on Spotify, tap the 3 horizontal dots, and leave a rating. All right, let's get back into it.
All right, so it's the most ironic thing in the world. We just pulled up some research from ChatGPT.
Deep research.
Deep research. And it throws out some interesting stats that I wanted us to talk about. So this one's really good. Let's see. By 2024, 76% of developers reported using or planning to use AI in their development process, up from 70% the year before. In professional settings, 63% of devs were already using AI, and another 14% plan to start shortly. How does that strike you, Shahed? What do you think about that?
So I'm going to talk about it from a designer's perspective. And my hot take on this is that designers should code. The design industry as a whole, like we've been having these debates back and forth about, hey, should designers code? Should they not? Because I mean, the craft of design is around making sure the user experience is great. Like focus on what makes the user experience better. I mean, the software part of it, like it's a component of it, but it's a big component. But you know, you don't need to understand how software works to be able to deliver a good experience. But I think that's changing, especially with AI, like with some of the stats that you threw out. With developers increasing efficiency, what I think AI has done is raise the floor on development, right? It's just made everything more accessible. Like if you are not on board learning these new technologies, experimenting with them, like yeah, you can get that efficiency gain. I don't think it matters for designers, right? Because they're for the most part they're going from zero, or maybe they know some CSS, some HTML, but like once
Right.
you start getting into logic, you're still starting from a very pretty like a very baseline state. But the most important thing is that you're actually using it. Like what I want to see designers start doing is, it doesn't matter if it's wrong, if it's going to generate crappy code, you don't know what exactly what you're doing, but the main focus for design, like what we deliver, is working software. Like at the end of the day, that's the only thing that matters. Is it working software in the hands of the users being used, right? Your wireframe, your prototypes, all of that is documentation. That's not, I mean, that's a way, that's a means to get to the working software. As a designer, the closer you can, even for developers too, like the closer you can bridge the gap. I guess for designers would be bridging the gap between your thinking, your design to working software, and for the developers it would be from the working software back to design, right? So it's again like how do we start getting closer to each other with using AI? And one last thing I'd say on this topic is when we have product managers kind of describe a feature and they have like a Word doc that they share to the rest of the team, it generates some conversation, but it's mostly a lot of what ifs, right? You don't have a clear picture of what exactly it is that you're proposing. The moment you put a wireframe in front of people, it generates tons of conversations,
Sure.
a lot of hot takes, a
Yeah.
lot of oh, I don't like this, I don't like that, but there's conversation being generated, right?
Right.
That's the power of a wireframe. Now you turn that wireframe to be interactive. Like say it's a prototype that's mocked up by AI. I mean that conversation is elevated even more, right? So that's I think it's going to create better ways of working. It's going to create richer conversations. I think the speed is fine, but the focus should always be on, like even with AI, whether it's developers using it, designers using it, the focus should always be on delivering value.
I think it's interesting that you called out the wireframe because I think traditionally, and you can check my understanding on this, but traditionally wireframes became kind of the tool that we would use because code was more expensive to generate. So a wireframe is extremely fast and rapid to generate. You can iterate quickly and get feedback and throw it away at low cost, right?
Right.
So now what you're saying is like in an AI enabled kind of development plus design workflow, you could actually probably emit real artifacts that are closer to working code more quickly in the same mechanism as a wireframe. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah.
Cool.
So we started jumping into high fidelity wireframes
Right.
instead of going to low fidelity because we have these UI kits. We're able to construct, we have material design, we have like all of these design systems, UI kits, and we're able to cobble together wireframes that actually look pretty, pretty, high quality in a very short amount of time.
Right.
Like we don't, so there was, I mean, we can get into an argument about, you need to go into low fidelity design because then the clients don't, or the stakeholders don't get hung up on the details, right? Like the lower the fidelity, the more you focus on the interaction and the user experience rather than, the visual design, because I mean, that gets distracting. But I think the value here is, yeah, it's the same thing. Like now you're just compressing that even further. You're jumping right into working software, even if it's prototypes. And I think my bet is it's going to generate much richer conversations because you also won't get all of the interactions and the edge cases, right? So let's say
Right.
you have like a prototype. you can. So one of the things I say in the usability tests when I test prototypes in Figma is that these are just a bunch of images wired up together. They're not. It's not an actual working app. If you click on a bunch of things, nothing is going to work, right? I always have to preface with that. But if you take a prototype and you have AI kind of generate most of it, like you can always you can also wire up the logic, and it's not that much of a lift, right? So it gets closer to a richer, more real experience, and I think that's going to generate better conversations.
And you can iterate on it super fast. Like if you're sitting there in a room and you have like a V0 or something up, and you've generated a clickable prototype with some logic, and then the stakeholder is like, wouldn't it be cool if, instead of when you clicking that button, it popped up with a modal, but it had like a sliding bottom drawer. You can like be like, okay, cool, let's see what that looks and feels like really quickly. And like, instead of saying, okay, cool, let me go back to Figma, let me, pull in a component, and you could get that back maybe to them in a day or a few hours before. Now it's like, we can vibe code that together. See what that feels like. Okay, now we feel it. Okay, the bottom drawer actually feels way better than a modal. So let's. It is just a modal that's attached to the bottom of the window, but it is. It is a modal. No, it is.
I like that flavor of modal more than that other flavor of modal.
Oh, this one has borders all the way around it, and this one is attached to the bottom and comes up. It's totally not the same thing. But like, okay, we like the feel of that better. So now then you could go back and be like, cool, I'm going to invest more time into how to make this interaction feel like super crisp, because I found something directionally right through like, the iteration. All right. So first of all, we have to remember the stat came from survey.stackoverflow.com.
Right.
And this is like a gold mine. So we just had the deep research stuff, but while he was talking, instead of listening, I was reading this survey.
Cool. Way to stay engaged.
Yeah, I was engaged, and I even contributed to the little bit of the last stuff you said. No, but like we have to link this in the show notes. Like this is incredible. 60,000 developers responding, a whole bunch of stuff, and there's some great data in here. I think like with any change management process, especially when you're like retooling a craft, a trade, a department, something like that, you can pretty quickly and easily like develop 3 buckets of people. First bucket of people are always like the optimists, the early adopters, the advocates. And so in the AI adoption world, they're going to be the people who are like they're paying for ChatGPT out of their own pocket. They're using it already. They might not be telling you because they might be afraid of like getting in trouble for using it or something, but there are going to be a group of people who are using AI, if they're developers, if they're marketers, if they're whatever it is, and they're just doing it because they're excited about it. It helps them do their job faster. It means that they can do better work, and so they're your advocates. Then and we should do everything we can. Like an organization should do everything they can to empower and amplify the voices of those people, because they are staunch advocates. They're pushing on the bleeding edge of these tools. They know where it works. They know where it doesn't. They're the experts, right? And if you're having them pay for ChatGPT out of their own pocket and hide the fact that they're doing it, you're not going to adopt the problem. So they should be designing how everybody else adopts it. In the middle, I think we have this like skeptic group. And skeptics are they're like the dabblers, I'm pretty happy. I'm good at my job. I think this could be pretty cool. I saw some posts about it, or someone I really trust on LinkedIn or somewhere, a mentor told me it was really cool. So I went and played with it for a little bit, and they might have come up against a speed bump, and where an advocate saw a speed bump and hit that thing at 45 miles an hour and like made everybody hit their head on the top of the car. This person kind of slowed down, turned around.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, I mean, it worked. It was, and you see a lot of this. They're pragmatic. They're reasonable. It could see it, helping me, but it's not like this huge, productivity booster. So, I use it every now and then, but I prefer to write my own code kind of thing, or I can still write marketing copy really well. And that's what those people are incredible, because given the right guidance and like the right push, they'll see the boost, and they're looking for it.
Yeah,
they're looking for where it could have helped them. They might not have found it, and then they're like, oh, it's just like, I don't want to go keep engaging and like be exploratory. But if someone kind of gives me the guide to use it, they'll use it, and they'll like lean in hard. And then last you have the holdouts. So you have your skeptics, and then finally your holdouts. And the holdouts are the people who are, staunchly against change.
Right.
And they identify themselves really, really quickly. They often use any trope that they can see on the internet. They'll use things that are kind of like, I think in the AI world are a little bit of like bike shedding arguments, like, well, what about the environmental concerns of AI, or what about the fact that it was trained on copyrighted data? And like these are tools that a holdout will use, or arguments that a holdout will use to distract from the change that is coming, because they don't want that change to come for some reason, and I don't know why. And maybe they truly believe the environmental stuff is real and that matters to them, but you as an organization should waste zero time on those people. And when we look at this developer adoption thing, bring the skeptics along, train them, waste zero time on the holdouts, and let them self-select out or make a decision to just say, like, we're adopting AI. It helps with, and if you don't want to be here, you need to go, or you have to do that yourself as an organization and as a leader. What I thought was interesting, and then you looked like you wanted to say something. First stat here, 60,907 respondents said to the question, do you currently use AI tools in your development process? 61.8% said yes. 13% says no, but I plan to soon. I don't know what that means. Like, just go do it. That's like such a weird. Like, there's either yes or no.
In this weird way to word that.
Do you plan on doing it? I mean, one day. I don't know. I'll start going to the gym on January 1st. No, start today. No, and then the last 24.4% said no, and I don't plan to. So, 24 plus 13, so you're at like 37% of the people are like, no, I don't use it. And the people who say they plan to, they're the skeptics, by the way. Yeah. Versus the 24% are the holdouts. And so
the number seems high.
It's really cool. So that paired with the second number in here, and I'm like scrolling down really quickly because I think that this is like really cool, is next to it, and it goes to everything we said earlier in this podcast, is this question. How much do you trust the accuracy of the output from AI tools as part of your development workflow? 2.7% said highly trust. 40.3% said somewhat trust. So that's 43%. So that's 43% highly trust this. The rest don't.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So 60% or are indifferent. So 26.6% is neither trust or distrust. But that to me is also like, I mean, you can't sit on a fence. You have to get on one side. And if you're not trusting it, then if you aren't saying I do trust this, then you're approaching the code AI writes with an inherent amount of skepticism, and you don't. So it's not that you don't trust or distrust. It's you don't have the courage to say you don't trust it. So that means that like 43% say that they don't trust it, which means that 57 or do trust it. Means 57% of developers don't trust what AI is writing, but 60% of them are using it.
Trust but verify.
Trust but verify. And that's like exactly what we've been talking about. Sure. It's like the developer still sits in the seat. People like 48 plus 23%. So you're at like oh my God, doing math on a podcast live. 71% of people, and plus the digits. So 72% of people are very favorable of using AI in their workflows. Like people like it, but they don't trust it.
Right.
They see it's valuable. They're rating it valuable.
Right.
81% say it increases productivity. People see it's valuable, see it increasing productivity,
but they don't trust it.
But they don't trust it because they want to be a developer. They want to drive.
Okay, but you did say something that's really interesting in your holdouts. There are reasons to not trust this process.
But my point is holdouts are not willing to engage. They bike shed. They do whatever they can to not engage with the process.
I just want to say, though, that a holdout who is raising environmental concerns may have a valid point, but what you're saying...
I don't think so.
I think there is a valid point and a concern around the rampant use of resources that are associated with AI. I think that you can make a great case for that. What you're saying, I think, what I'm hearing you say is that train's left the station.
Exactly.
And I get that, and I think that's totally makes sense. But I do think, asking questions about the sustainability of the technology, asking questions about the ethical implications, I don't think that should be just patently disregarded. But I don't think it's an excuse for not engaging with AI.
That's true.
See what I'm saying? So I'm an
Fair.
advocate, and I can see all of those.
I think it just depends on where those conversations are happening. If
Sure.
you're using it as a bike shed to not engage with AI, and
Right.
like that's your reason, or like someone saying, I don't really want to
It's
try
an
AI. I'm being
excuse.
I want to be a good developer. I don't want to engage with AI, and like I don't think it'll work. And they rattle off a handful of reasons. It generates slop code. It has too much context, the privacy concerns, whatever it is. And then you say to this developer, so what tools have you tried to use? And like, well, I haven't tried any yet. Like essentially I just write the whole thing off.
Yeah, that's fair.
And I think that's okay. And I think what we're seeing here is like 60% of people are not writing off AI, but also all those people who are using it say like, hey, I need to be in the driver's seat still as I develop with this. When I vibe code or I do, AI driven development, I want to be in the driver's seat because I don't blindly trust the commits that AI is writing.
Sure.
And it's not as good as me today. But it does make me better. 81% increased productivity, 62% speed up learning, 58% creator efficiency, 30% improve accuracy in coding. Like these are huge numbers. And if you're an engineering leader and you're not like enabling your teams to engage with these things, like that's a problem.
Those numbers actually make me feel a little more hopeful because
Right.
you always need the human in the loop. I think I would love to see these same stats for writing because I feel like it's going
Right.
to be way off. I think people are way more optimistic on AI for writing. I mean, you can see with all the AI slop that's going around.
In our next episode, we're talking about one of the most expensive missteps in software, teams throwing away perfectly good systems just to rewrite them from scratch. It feels bold, but it's usually just a waste. If you've ever been part of a burn it down and rebuild project, you don't want to miss our next episode.
Remember to respect the craft. Evolution doesn't require chaos, and teams will always beat heroes. Cheers.